Good evening or good morning. Hi. Today's video, I'm going to be concerned a little bit more about typology. Typology, what I mean by that is the study of ontology by dividing something into types and trying to classify it, give it some, to have some understanding. And just to give a little bit of context, I'm going to read a little bit from Giordano Bruno's On Magic. Very interesting. If you have the chance, I recommend you look it up. I, for one, got it in both English and French. Uh, Sometimes the translations aren't so clear. So this is what Giordano Bruno says about the classifications of magic. And I'm just going to read words off of paragraphs here, not the whole thing, because it'll go pages. So you have first the term magician means a wise man. Second, magician, there is one that is called natural magic. Third, you have prestidigitation. Fourth, you have one that is called natural magic. Fifth, you have one that is called mathematical magic, or even more accurately, occult philosophy. Sixth, we end up with something called theurgy. Seventh, we have another one called necromancy or a Pythian. And then we have eighth, something that is wicked or poisonous magic. Then ninth, we have all the ideas of diviners and prophecy, and I won't go into that. There are hundreds of divination disciplines that have been named out there. The lists are absolutely incredible. And then finally, magic and magician have a pejorative connotation, which has not been included or examined in the above meanings. In this sense, a magician is any foolish evildoer who is endowed with the power of helping or harming someone by means of a communication with or even a pact with a foul devil. This meaning does not apply to wise men or indeed to authors, although some of them have adopted the name hooded magicians. For example, the authors of the book De Maleo Maleficarum. As a result, the name is used today by all writers of this type, as can be seen in the comments and beliefs of ignorant and foolish priests. So this is quite interesting. I would like to talk about the main classification that people will have, and that would be the difference between black magic and white magic. So I'm going to start by giving a small history of it. So just before I go into that, the idea that I wanted to talk about black magic versus white magic versus a whole bunch of different kinds of magic is that people would say that there are different kinds of magic so that they are ontologically different from each other instead of just one magic that is manifested in different ways. And this is one that I'd like to address. And if you've been following my videos so far, I bet you can predict where this is going to go at the end. But nonetheless, allow me to elaborate my point. So a history on black magic. Let's talk a little bit about ancient Greece. Ancient Greece, there was a distinction between people who were polite, who came from polis, or a polis, people who were able to do politics. Polis is the ancient Greek word for city. If you came from a polis, you were able to be polite, and you were able to do politics. Quite the opposite of those hideous, incorrect, ugly barbarians, the Greeks, they had this language and this religion, that was lost in the earliest mists of time, whereas these barbarians, they just had these random guttural whatever languages that made no sense, and Greek's magic was right and correct and polite and civilized, whereas the barbarians, that was, black magic. Same thing when it comes to Rome, Rome had a civil religion, a civil civil system of magic. Um, they were civilized. They created civilizations. And this was this is what made their religion and their magic legitimate, contrary to those uncivilized people that simply had to be conquered and they were to be brought into the civilization of Rome and then to legitimize their black magics into something that was legitimate and correct. Hence, civics was necessary to the others so that it wasn't some sort of black magic type thing. So here comes Christianity. Christianity's really interesting because all of a sudden, all of the gods are wrong and fake and evil, and everybody who worships these gods are in error, and they're following the devil, and they're doing black magic. Contrary to the good Christians who do the right thing, who have the true religion, and who are not doing all of this black, evil, dark stuff. So let's move forward a few centuries. We have, Christianity has taken over a whole bunch of Europe, and the Enlightenment comes along, and people decide to take boats further than they've ever taken there before. And they go south and they discover this whole continent with people that have different religions and a different quantity of melatonin in their skin. And lo and behold, the term black magic takes on a whole new meaning. So these men with different colored skins and these different religions, well, those are black men that do black religions, and there are deemed to be evil and inferior and unchristian and so on and so forth. And these Europeans, they put them unfortunately in chains and in boats, and they sell these brave men and women to the Americans who enslaved them for many years. And of course, their religion, their spirituality, that was just black magic. That was evil. That was bad. But the Christians, oh God, that was still the right thing, the light, whereas the others were in darkness. So let's go a little bit forward, another couple centuries, and here we are in the 20th century. 20th century, we go into any shop that sells New Age products, Wiccan shop, alternative spirituality shop, so on and so forth. All of these people, they will never, ever, ever sell anything for black magic because it's bad and it's wrong. They sell Alchemy Gothic, but that store on the other side of the street, they sell Killstar merchandise. They're selling black magic. Don't you dare buy over there. That's bad. And these guys, they listen to Marilyn Manson, but we only listen to light and bubbly New Age music and so on and so forth. So these guys are bad. They do black magic. They're the competition. They have furnishers of herbs and incense that don't, it's not the same supplier. They're bad, so. And but hey, the store's magic, it's all white magic, it's all good, it's the best herbs. They were Keyi in English. I hate when I lose my English like this. Keyi, they were picked. There you go. They were picked in an auspicious moon, whereas the others are industrially picked and they have bad energies, black magic energies, and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty sure you see where I'm going with this. I'm talking about this whole categorization of magic that has, I believe, a big part of its origins in some sort of xenophobia, a sort of a demonization of the other, a sort of misunderstanding of the other, or considering the other inferior, kind of like a bad nationalism, that we're good and the other is bad. And it has been seen all throughout history in Western civilization. Most of Western civilization was built on slavery ever since, ever since the earliest, ever since the written word. I think people have been attesting slaves and such. And, you had to demonize a few people, dehumanize them a little bit, so their spiritualities were black, and ours were white. And I'd like to give a nice little example. I don't know if this is the correct time, but hey, let's do it just to show you I'm not coming out of anywhere. I was reading from Giordano Bruno. He was writing a little bit between the years 1600. That's when he got burned at the stake because he was doing black magic. And do you know why? Because he didn't agree with the church. And if you don't agree 100% with the church, well, you're not in the light. You're in the dark. You're evil. So here's another guy that was not burnt at the stake who had to recant. Here we have Pico de la Mirandola, or Pic de la Mirandole in French. So he was writing in 1486, 900 theses. And those are a whole bunch of philosophical theses. And like everybody in those days, you could see it if you studied the Solomonic grimoires and all of that grimoire tradition. They would always have a little disclaimer, which was not, I dare say, limited to the indicative of the ontology. And you'll see why that's important. So let me read this nice little beginning here. That's another book that I got both in English and French. And this is a Latin and English, and I have another one that's Latin and French, but my Latin wasn't good enough, so I needed both translations, English and French, to actually try to understand it. I mean, Pico de la Mirandola is a crazy intelligent person. Those 900 theses, you can just read this and just meditate on them forever. It's absolutely intense. But this is actually in his, at the end of the book, it's his 26 magical conclusions, according to my own opinion. So it's talking about his opinion of magic. And he says, all magic that is in use among the moderns, and which the church justly exterminates, has no firmness, no foundation, no truth, because it depends on the enemies of the first truth, those powers of darkness, which pour the darkness of falsehood over poorly disposed intellects. Natural magic is permitted and not prohibited. And concerning the universal theoretical foundations of this science, I propose the following conclusions according to my own opinion. That was conclusion 1 and conclusion 2 of the 26. And this is great because he just has to give this disclaimer, to say that, hey, I'm not doing what all of those bad people are doing, whoever they are. I'm doing the right thing that the church should not be killing me for. So he follows that and he says, magic is the practical part of natural science. So once again, he's still staying prudent right there. And then, if I go here, few conclusions later, he says, no power exists in heaven or earth seminally and separated that the magician cannot actuate and unite. So on the first one, he's saying, there are two kinds of magic, the right kind and the wrong kind, and I'm not doing the wrong kind, I'm not doing the right kind. We could say that that is an ontological statement. It is not. It is not, because right after he makes his ontological statement, when he says, no power exists in heaven or earth seminally and separated that the magician cannot actuate and unite. Basically, there's two kinds of magics. No, actually, if you do magic, it gets its hold on everything. This magic is basically universal. It can touch everything. It's connected to everything. So I won't go further than this right now. Yeah, because there's something absolutely interesting that he says. I think that would be better if I talk about it a little bit at the end. Okay. All right. So let me continue. Yeah. And so it's important to note, just to make sure I'm not losing myself, if you want to know why I seem confused about these notes, this is actually an article I wrote in French that I'm just using to get my bearings so that I don't lose myself. And the irony is that trying to go from French and English is actually confusing me a little bit. So I will thank the watcher their patience while I get my linguistic bearings on this. Right. Okay. So all right, so here we go. There's been this tendency in the 20th century to quote unquote ontologize those kinds of magic, as in really different kinds of magic, and each magic being its own separate self. Uh, Chaos magic has been a little bit against the grain on that, or at least trying to have a quote unquote meta paradigm. They say those are different paradigms, so different ontological aspects of magic or ontological views of magic. They are paradigms, but we, chaos magicians, we have a meta paradigm. So our understanding of magic is that, we're on top of all these ontologies and we can go from one ontology, one paradigm, to another. But this is, I think that's a bit of a not a false solution. I would say a good solution to a false problem. Because one of the things that we've seen in the 20th century is that much like activists have appropriated words that have been used pejoratively against them as, words of power. We've had a little bit of that in the occult community too. The earliest example that I can think of is Anton LaVey when he founded the Satanic Church. And all of this black magic and Satan and evil iconography and so on and so forth, he decided to turn it into something positive, just like those activists were doing with all of the name calling that other people were giving them. Pardon? Oh yes, and Anton LaVey was the first, but then you had this whole idea of a whole it had in French we say un effet boule de neige. I guess a snowball effect would be the correct term in English. So it had a snowball effect. So you had a whole bunch of groups popping up here and there, all reclaiming themselves from the darkness and the dark. The Addams Family was popular back in the 60s, and so on and so forth. And now you have the sabbatic craft. There was Andrew Chumley, another author that was very influential in in my early years in studying magic. And Andrew Chumley, he has this really eloquent style of writing with so much vocabulary. It's been imitated to a fault ad nauseam. I mean, at some point, I just get weary of these people trying to be darker than thou, all trying to imitate or surpass the overwordiness of Andrew Chumley, trying to have the same air of mystique. It kind of gets cliche in a way, the darker than thou, the over vocabularized darker than thou, and I think E.A. Koetting could be the caricature of it, the whole become a living God movement that he had a couple of years ago, and this whole reappropriation of it all, kind of gave this idea of different ontologies. So then you have the British traditional witchcraft, that is one kind of magic, one type of magic, and then you have chaos magic, which is a little bit far from its origins as a meta paradigm, that is now another kind of magic, dragon magic, green magic, Wiccan, theurgy, which is a big thing. Everybody who does theurgy these days, they dissociate themselves just like the medievals did from all other kinds of magic. Their kind of magic is separate and unique. It has its own ontology, which, even by the example I gave in Pico de la Mirandola, wasn't meant as an ontology, it was meant as a disclaimer so that they wouldn't be hunted and killed by the Holy Inquisition. So, if I continue today, in my opinion, the major difference between black magic and white magic is whether you like listening to acoustic world music, use white candles, and do magic in a white robe, or whether you like listening to metal, have black lights and black candles, and wear a black robe with an inverted pentagram. Today, I think it's very obvious when you, especially with the internet, especially with the tons and tons of information that you have, if you read long enough, you see that most of these differences are essentially aesthetic, and they have much more in common in their ontology than they do when it comes to, they have much more in common in their ontology than they like to admit or that they would ever admit. Their magic is unique and true and pure and so on and so forth, but it's basically the same thing with a different musical style and a different haircut, so to speak. And a lot of people, when they see those things, and a lot of people who would accept that those are different ontologies, they want to have this theory of everything when it comes to magic, and they say, well, white magic and black magic, they're just on both sides of the continuum. And magic is actually a rainbow that goes from white to black with all of the colors of green magic and red magic and this magic and that magic. And they try to reconciliate that. Or even there's going to be, the two sides of the same coin. It's you can't have light without shadows. So if you do evil magic, you're definitely going to do good magic. Other people stay very, very, very dichotomic and really need this whole categorization to legitimize themselves. They're not doing something bad. And this is one thing. Everyone, I would say, every single spiritual tradition from the dawn of humanity has included the whole expandment, the whole breadth of human emotion. Every single spiritual tradition will have anger, will have aggressivity, will have violence. Just as much as it will have peace, it will have retribution, it will have honor, it will have love, it will have compassion. And the whole idea is that, when I do it, it's justice. When you do it, it's evil. When, I do it, it's divine sanction. It's a holy war. But when you do it, it's because you're evil, plundering barbarians and crazy heathens without any morals and so on and so forth. It's important not to fall into these kinds of traps. What you're doing is still magic. All of these typologies and classifications are not necessarily ontology, but they kind of, they are ontology in the sense that ontology is a branch of philosophy that you basically philosophize on what something is. So it's ontology in one sense, but it's not ontological in my understanding, in the sense that you're still putting more costumes and you're still putting more classifications on something that is true to itself, and that will be the same despite all of its costumes and societal manifestations. And this is one thing that a Discordian proverb that I really like. There are two kinds of people in the world. Those who believe there are two kinds of people, and those who don't. Hail Eris. And so you'll find people who will, you'll still find people who will separate magic into two things. The one that I used to really, really like was initiatic magic, or high, some people call it high magic. I like to say initiatic magic. and operative magic. Other people call it low magic. And one of the things you notice is that if you really, really concentrate on the initiatic, the speculative, the self-development aspect, the philosophical, you end up working on yourself so much that you actually have a knack at doing those operative things. And if you do, operative magic, practical magic, goal-oriented magic, results magic, magic to make things happen, to occur change in the real world, sur le plancher des vaches, as we say in French, on the floor that the cows stand on, concrete stuff. Well, the more you do it, the more you think about what you're doing, the more you're philosophizing, the more that you understand, the better a comprehension you have of what is actually going on. So they tend to join themselves. Someone who's really, really good in green magic and who has done just that, and you give them this old grimoire, and I say, can you translate that magic into green magic? And they say, yeah, sure, because we can take that demon and oh yeah, that demon's properties reminds me of this herb and that herb, and it just kind of makes sense. Once you're really good at one type of magic, you can pretty much understand every single one. I think that's one trend I've seen. I don't know if all of you, dear viewers, have had the same observations, but those are the types of observations that's led me to at least induce that magic is itself, but manifests itself in pretty much any other way. And perhaps another example I have of this, language. I can speak French and I can speak English, but they're two distinct languages, but it's one capacity of being able to have language. In the same way, parents can have many kids and can love many kids, but loving one kid doesn't delete the love that they have for another kid. The same thing about religion. If I can have one religion, I can also adhere to another. It doesn't matter if the languages contradict, if the languages sonorities contradict each other, or if the religions metaphysical concepts contradict each other. They both come down to the same human capacity, the capacity of language, the capacity of magic, the capacity of love, the capacity of freedom, and so on and so forth. And this is the part, I'm guessing, where those of you are thinking, aha, I knew where he was going. Yes, because all of these things, they definitely boil down, I think, to being human. And I have yet another really cool reference from Pico de la Mirandola. Just grab something. I think I've been speaking a bit quicker today in my video. My life partner, she was always telling me to slow down. Take a sip of water. Anyhow, so and this I find is absolutely brilliant. Just gotta find the right one. There you go. No, not this one. You see, I don't ever write anything in my books. I think that's horrible. Here it is. What man the magus makes through art, nature made naturally making man. So the magic that man does is actually the magic that nature makes through us, because we are, as human beings, a product of nature, and therefore it's nature making its magic through us. It's another really interesting ontological comment by Pico, and it goes in the same sense that I was saying. Magic is this thing that we humans do. Okay, so maybe it's not something that originates within us as humans. It might not be. I mean, I tend to postulate that, but I could be erroneous in my postulate. But in the same way that magic is its own thing, if it's pre-existent in nature, well, it's definitely going to manifest itself into all of the human activities that we can think of, or all the human language, all the human elements of culture. But it's still going to be magic. It's still going to be itself. And so that pretty much concludes what I had to say about types of magic, about the and what types of magic have to say about the ontology of magic. So basically, that's what I'm saying. The types of magic are not different kinds. There's magic. It manifests whatever. It's something that, in my opinion, it's something that comes from the heart. Oh, yes, yes. It's something I would have probably mentioned in another one, in another video, but I think I'll add it here. Oh, no, I guess not. I guess not. So, yes, I'll end it to that. And finally, at the end, just want to give one last quote by Terence McKenna. He calls it the felt presence of immediate experience. I think that's a very, very good way of pointing at something, pointing at this magic thing. Chaos magicians called it gnosis. I don't like using that word because the Gnostics used it better. However, I do think this whole very human, or this very natural element of humanity is something that is universal, and it's something that the felt presence of immediate experience can definitely help open ourselves up to it, and not lose ourselves in all of these categorizations and classifications and typologies and black magics and white magics. You're a magician, you do magic. There you go. So I wish you all a good one, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.